Hello, you're listening to the Saluki Gamescast. This is episode 126 for Wednesday, October 29th, 2025, only 2 days from Halloween. And of course, Christina's not here for Halloween week. How irresponsible is that?
Well, not only for Halloween week, we actually finally got a fourth person to have like a full 4-person table, and she can't make it.
No, I think she took that as an excuse, right? Like, you have a sub for me. I don't have to be here.
Bad.
That is Mario Sanders joining me as always. And we have a special guest this week, Frankie Kimmel. Frankie, welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Frankie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? You're a grad student here in our department and everything, but tell us a little bit about what you're studying and everything.
Yeah, so I'm a fourth-year PhD candidate. Mario and I came in at the same time to the program, so getting ready to finish, hopefully, keeping my fingers crossed this year if I can. I do kind of like communication pedagogy, research work, coursework. I do stuff with gender, sexuality, relational comm.
Pedagogy, for those who don't know, is teaching.
Teaching, yes.
Yeah.
So kind of the art of teaching, helping people teach better, things like that, teaching more. And my focus is, I guess, teaching more in like a socially just way in the classroom, how to make classrooms more equitable spaces and things like that. I also completed the Women, Gender, Sexuality Studies certificate as well, apart from our program in comm. And yeah, I'm working on my dissertation right now. So I'm, in a nutshell, using this theory that's called communication privacy management theory by Petronio, is the theorist and common scholar's name, which looks at how people manage their private information, how they decide to disclose it, when they do disclose it, how they manage it, those boundaries with the people that they disclose that information with, and things like that. So I'm using that theory to look specifically at how queer higher ed faculty decide to disclose their identity, their queer identity in higher ed as a whole, not just looking at the classroom, but really at the higher ed institution as like a whole space with everything that comes along with it, even like conferencing, journals, all the stuff that come along with being in like a higher ed academic position, how they decide to disclose or conceal that identity if they do decide to do either of those things, what factors go into that. And really specifically using a lens of what's happening politically right now in our country, just because there is a target and focus on LGBTQ plus people and on higher ed and things that happen within higher ed.
Yeah.
And I guess like even before the current political climate, right? Like that's always been kind of a weird situation because you can't ask somebody. There are legal reasons you can't ask somebody about their sexuality. And so you only really know if somebody volunteers that information. But I also get from their perspective that being a very maybe awkward situation at times to like, when do I bring this up? How do I broach this subject? Because it's not something that heterosexual people normally bring up unless they like, mention a partner of some kind, right? But I never walk into a meeting and go, by the way, everybody, I'm heterosexual, just so you know, right? And that would be very awkward and everything. So I would imagine for queer people, there's an awkwardness to how do you even begin? At what point do you broach that?
Yeah.
In what situation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of decision making that goes into it. Like you just said, of when do I do this? How do I do it? Like,
even if you expect it to be a safe environment to do so.
Yeah. Like for example, if I'm choosing to disclose, like when I was teaching, I'm our assistant introductory course coordinator now. So I'm not in the classroom, I'm not front facing as an instructor in the classroom. But when I would usually disclose my identity as a queer person to my students, but I wouldn't be like, oh, by the way, I'm gay. Like it wasn't that kind of conversation, but it was more subtle things like as I'm introducing myself at the beginning of the semester, talking about my partner and using he, him pronouns for my partner and just things like that to make it subtle but known. And so it is kind of like thinking about those decisions of when of what space you're in. There might be spaces or even people that you're comfortable with sharing, but you're not comfortable sharing as a whole. So maybe you don't talk about it in the classroom with your students, but you're comfortable talking about it with certain people in your department. But you want to keep that separate from the classroom for certain reasons. Focus, now definitely, but even previously, obviously there are certain states that are more conservative than others, certain states that are more liberal than others. So, that's going to be another thing. I'm not just focusing on our institution, but I'm hoping to get, I'm using an open-ended qualitative survey and hoping to follow up with people through interviews as well. And so I'm hoping that through that, I'm able to get some voices from some more conservative states where there are more things at risk for certain people, and how it's impacting them, especially like people that maybe have been more vocally out in the past, and to hear their concerns about that now. If what's going on currently has made them maybe more vocal in a sort of protest way or activism way, or maybe if they are feeling restricted and like they need to maybe conceal a little bit more. I'm just interested. I don't know what I'm going to hear. I haven't done the interviews yet.
Sure.
I'm waiting on IRB revisions, but I'm really excited to find out what people have to say and hear the different stories of these queer faculty.
Yeah, I remember when I lived in Indiana, I was friends with a lesbian couple, and they both taught K through 12, one at a private school, one at a public school. The one at a private school was very open about her sexuality, and everybody there basically knew her partner. The one who taught at a public school hid, hid her sexuality, hid her partner, because in Indiana you could be fired for being gay. Like there were no protections in place at the time. And that was a very weird, I think, dynamic for both of them, right? That here, this side of the relationship is very open. Everybody knows you. And this side, you're kind of hiding this person. And they both understood why, but that was a very weird dynamic to think about for them.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Frankie, what sort of games do you like to play? Since this is a gaming podcast, what sort of games are you into?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute, but I would say the main games that I play and the main franchise I'm interested in is the Pokemon franchise and Pokemon games. Those are the ones that I've kind of followed throughout my entire life and have played almost every single mainline. Well, I played every single mainline game and then a lot of the side games, depending on the consoles, because there were some consoles that I just didn't have as a kid.
Sure.
But I've followed that franchise since it came out in '98 in the US with Red and Blue. Other than that, I would say I'm a pretty casual gamer. I play a lot of games based on other media that I consume. So if there's something that I like, a TV show or a movie franchise that I watch that also has a game attached to it, I find myself gaming with those things a lot. So for example, I recently this year played the Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order games on the PlayStation 5 because I love Star Wars. I love the movies. Watch a bunch of this new series on Disney Plus since Disney is kind of taken over Star Wars and owns that IP and things like that. So I played those games, really, really enjoyed them. Growing up, I loved, and I want to do a replay of them now that I have a PlayStation again. But I really enjoyed the Kingdom Hearts franchise growing up. So I played the first 3 of those games, and I've been watching the PlayStation Store online to see when there might be a price drop of those, or when they might go on sale, because they do every now and then, and when I can get them for a good price to digitally download them and do a playthrough of those again.
That Ultimate Collection,
the collection, yeah,
which is sells for something like $120 normally, or something. Yeah, I've been meaning to pick that up on Steam, and I keep waiting for it. I'm like, at some point, this is going to drop down to $30. Yeah, that seems like the reasonable price to me.
Yeah.
Do you have a disc drive PS5 or digital only?
I have a disc drive.
Okay, I might be able to help you out with that.
Oh, cool. Cool. Good to know. Yeah. So yeah, I play. I'm looking to play that again, and then I do some casual kind of like just chill games. Like I got into Animal Crossing in the pandemic when that hit, and everyone
Like
was
everyone
playing
else
it on
did.
the Switch, and I was like, oh cool, I have a Switch. This looks fun, and so I play that, and I just kind of I don't know if there is completing Animal Crossing. I feel like there are people that are really hardcore with it that like really try to perfect their islands and come up with like a really cool aesthetic and terraform like their whole island and stuff like that. I don't get that intense with it. I kind of play I go play in spurts. I'll play for a bit and like really get into it and like get to a certain point of the game where I'm like creating an island, creating an aesthetic and stuff like that. And then I kind of put it down for a long time and don't pick it back up and play it every day like some people do.
Sure.
And then I'll go back and I'm like, oh, I kind of want to just like chill and play this again. So I'll just like start a brand new island over and kind of start from the beginning and form a new island and stuff like that. So
Oh, so you don't even bother like going back to your old island and getting yelled at by the
No, I
animals?
don't.
They've all like cannibalized each other or something.
yeah.
That's always my thing. And going back is they all yell at me and they're like, "Where were you? We thought we were friends." And I'm like, "Come on, stop grieving me."
Yeah, I don't need the emotional manipulation from these animals, so I just cancel them and start over.
Erase them from existence.
Yep.
There's something very dark about that.
No emotional attachment whatsoever.
All right. Well, we are glad to have you with us this week, Frankie. So thank you for joining us. So how's your week been, everyone?
I'm getting very close. I've got like 4 more days for my prelims.
Oh,
So-
your deadline's 4 days.
Yeah, it's Sunday at 6 p.m. So
Oh,
like
so it's
right
not on
there.
Halloween
No, not on Halloween.
or not on All Saints Day.
Is that the first?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
I feel like that would be somehow appropriate, right? Like you survived, you
Sure.
didn't die, you made it through.
The true final dawn. What is it? Dawn of the final day.
Yeah.
Majora's Mask style.
Not All Saints Day, but it is All Souls Day. The
Okay.
second is All Souls Day.
Oh,
so,
okay.
There we go.
Yeah, I did go to Catholic school my whole life, so I can pull these random facts out.
He knows it better than I do. So, well, good luck with that. I know that's been heavy stress over the last month,
Yeah.
understandably.
It's more all the outside stuff that just starts to pile up that you don't have the time for. Like,
Sure.
my apartment's a mess and, going out to eat and like spending all that money because cooking is just like, I can't do this. I don't have the time to. So stuff like that is more stressful than the actual papers, but it'll be nice to like have all that come to an end.
Well, even just going out to eat to give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, I can understand that. When I'm really stressed out, I'm much more likely to order a pizza.
Sure.
And, not because I can't cook something, but because I'm just like, I want something that makes me happy for a few minutes. So I completely understand that. Yeah, it's been it's getting to that time of the semester for Alicia, where things are starting to pile up, and I feel like you're always trying to stay ahead of all the grading and everything else going on. So I did get out this weekend and got to see Marty Stewart was playing like 10 minutes outside of town at the casino, the Walker's Bluff Casino. I'm
sorry, I don't know who Marty Stewart is.
I don't either.
Oh man.
You got a couple of youths on your podcast today, Justin.
There we go. I feel like, again, Christina is letting me down by not being here. Christina, who grew up in Texas and is closer to my age, would know who Marty Stewart is. Marty Stewart was pretty famous in the 90s for country music, but he really does more kind of what I would call rockabilly music. And he's just a really fantastic guitar player.
Cool.
So I'm not a big country fan, but like going to see him live is going to see some really amazing musicians play.
Admire his talent, his musicianship.
Yeah. So he puts on a really great show, though. Like the casino has this quote unquote event center, which is just like basically a ballroom. And they'll set up a stage in the front and everything, and then they'll set up chairs, but they are chairs like without any arms on them or anything. So they're just like these little chairs with almost no space, and they put them like right against each other.
You're like really crammed in there.
Yeah. So like, if you're sitting next to a 5'2", 90-pound woman, it's no problem. But if like a couple of men are sitting next to each other, you're like basically almost sitting on top of each other. And I thought, like I understand the greed to pack as many people in here as possible, but like, couldn't you give us at least a little space?
Some amount of social distancing, we could have kept that.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like for some people that was a very miserable situation.
Sure, I can imagine.
So, yeah. Well, anyways, it's always cool to get out and hear some live music. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that. All right. Why don't we move on into what we've been playing? And Mario, why don't we start off with you? What have you been playing lately?
Sure. It hasn't been much. It's mostly just Ball X Pit, in like 15, 20-minute bursts, maybe do a run or two. And that's about it. I really don't have much more to add. I've unlocked a couple more characters. I've unlocked a couple more levels. My thoughts haven't really changed. I think that the actual game play of it is
Sure.
like pretty great, but the base building is something that I just do because it has to be done.
Yeah, I've played some more of that. We talked about it last week. I feel the same way. I mean, I think as you go along, the base building stuff does start to unlock things that make the game easier and make it maybe less frustrating. Particularly some of the base building aspects become less frustrating.
It looks like there's some automation, like there's some auto harvesting of the resources, which is nice.
You can actually, I don't think this is a spoiler, you actually get one building that allows you to send one of your characters out on a mission and to complete that mission while you're away. So all that's set on timers, which is a little weird because that feels very phone game-ish, right? Like the sort of thing where, hey, you can, you can harvest your crops every 30 minutes or something. And that feels very much like a phone game, something, that's, hey, and you can pay to buy these gems and like
Refill your hearts.
right. And so I sort of wonder, was this game designed with phones or tablets in mind?
Yeah.
Because so much of that is, or is this the sort of, bad influence of phone games that we have now a generation that's grown up on phone games? And so when they go and start making what we'd call more traditional console or PC games, they're bringing over a lot of that baggage, those design sensibilities, because it makes no sense whatsoever.
It is one where like it might be a little hard both moving your character and like what is the word, like the reticle that you shoot on a phone, but I could see this being a phone game. Like maybe the original design being a mobile game.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen it, advertised available for phones.
Yeah,
so
I haven't either.
It's certainly not there yet, as far as I know. I think I just unlocked the last level, maybe.
Oh, you've played a lot more than I have then. Or you're just a lot better than I am.
I think I've just played more. But like, there are things you start being able to use two characters at the same time.
Like I said, I've watched the friend who he's played a ton of it as well. And so I've seen, you can get multiple characters. I've seen some of the characters that are yet to be unlocked. And again, everything about it looks super cool. It's just that one part of the game that I'm just like big meh on. Yeah,
and that part of the game becomes slightly less frustrating, but it never stops being annoying. Like base building stuff is always like, I'm doing this to play the rest of the game, but this brings me no enjoyment. There's nothing fun about this. And like, I feel like, base building can be made fun. So it's very weird to build that into a game in this way.
Yeah.
Like maybe in testing Q&A, somebody should have said, hey, this really isn't fun. Is there some way to spice this up at least?
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I don't think I've really played anything. At least nothing is coming to mind.
All right. Well, after Sunday, you should have all sorts of time.
I feel like I need to like start like a Final Fantasy VII remake, some big game that I can just like sink all of my time into once I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, some sort of reward to just like veg your brain. You're done.
I did it beforehand with Claire Obscure. I'll find some other big game to celebrate being done with.
All right, Frankie, what have you been playing lately?
I have been playing the new Pokemon game, Pokemon Legends EA. Okay. I played it pretty consistently when it first came out. I did a digital download, so was able to just download it right when it was available. And so that Friday that it came out, I pretty much played consistently that whole weekend. And for a couple days after, I haven't been able to play as much recently because I have been working on the Speakers Forum stuff, which is a public speaking event that we put on in our department that I am in charge of running. And I've had auditions and the workshop within the past 2 weeks and the events next week. So that, along with doing dissertation stuff, has kind of taken over my time these past 2 weeks or so. But I did beat the main story. I haven't touched any of the post game yet.
Like you beat it that first weekend?
I would say, I think I finished it on maybe Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So I played consistently and got a really good chunk done over that first weekend, and then just had a couple of things to finish up over the next couple of days to beat the main story. But I was pretty had it in my hand constantly, pretty much sun up to sundown. And I'll say I am very beholden to Game Freak and the Pokemon Company. They have me in a chokehold, and I will pretty much drop money on whatever they put forth. So I am probably the most biased person, but I had a really good time playing it. I really, really enjoyed my first playthrough.
So I have not played any of the mainline Pokemon games recently. I think the last one I played was Let's Go Pikachu. Mm-hmm. That's the remake one they did, right?
Okay. And it used like the Pokemon Go mechanics in the game.
Right. Mm-hmm. I always get the titles confused. Like Let's Go Pikachu or
Eevee.
Yeah, Eevee. But like there's always like Pokemon titles. There's so many of them, Like Hey You Pikachu. That's what I always want to call it. And I know that's a different game, but that's the one where you use the microphone, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, that's the last one I played. So most of my knowledge of the Pokemon games recently has been filtered through Alicia, who has very strong opinions, which I feel like every Pokemon fan does. So how would you compare this one to... Why don't we start off with Arceus, the last Legends game? How would you compare it to that?
I would say they're similar in kind of the story mechanic, in the sense that it's like mission based. So you have mainline missions that you're trying to complete sort of the main story. And then there's side missions that you can complete that open up as you are completing main missions. So, you complete main mission 4, more side missions open up that you can complete that are just like little things to go do. A lot of them are like silly, goofy, funny. And are like a good little 5 minutes to do or something like that. Some of them might take a little bit longer. But yeah, so story-wise, pretty similar in that it's mission-based and there's no sort of like Elite Four, no 8 gyms, not trying to become like the champion of the region that you're in and things like that. So it follows that kind of story basis. The catching mechanics are pretty similar. And that the Pokemon are wild roaming out in the world. You can throw Pokeballs at them sort of willy-nilly. You don't have to engage in like a battle first or anything like that.
And there's little zones in this one, like it's almost like a park in the middle of the city.
So this one is set in Kalos, which is based off Pokemon X and Y, those games. Specifically, it's only set in Lumio City, which is like the main city in the game. And so it's one big circular map. And you are in the cityscape. There are points where you go underground and you can go into the sewers and things like that. So there's different levels. You can climb up to the rooftops of the buildings and things like that. So there's some climbing, platforming aspects to the game as well, which keep it a little fun.
Do you like that? Do you approve of them adding that in?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's not like a huge part of it. There's just like some items that you can get via like doing some platforms. Basically, it's like the city is under this urban redevelopment is sort of the story. And so they are trying to make the city where it's a place where people and Pokemon can live together. So there's like the urban areas that the people live in, and then they're starting to create these
Pokemon DEI.
Exactly. They're creating these wild zones that have Pokemon in them. And because it's being there's this urban redevelopment, there's a construction company within the game. And so there's this scaffolding throughout the city. And so you can kind of like platform on the scaffolding and collect items and things like that, which I think is nice because it gives a little purpose to the item collection. Whereas like in Legends Arceus and even in like Scarlet and Violet, the most recent mainline game as well, they're open world and the item collection just feels a little bit random. Like they're just kind of scattered throughout the world. I kind of like the platforming aspect that this brings because it does give a little bit more direction to like where items are located and especially like key items and things like that. What's really different about this game compared to any other Pokemon game is there's a new battle mechanic. So the battles are not turn-based anymore, like pretty much every other Pokemon game before this. I am, again, casual gamer, so I don't know all the correct terminology, but it's sort of an active battle system where you can click on a move and that move has a cooldown period. So instead of like you click on a move, it's your turn, you go, then your opponent goes, and then it's your turn to click on a move. You are actively battling your opponent. So you can click on a move, and then while that move is cooling down, you can automatically click on another move to use.
So it's sort of like Final Fantasy.
I think, yeah.
Some of those games have had
the newer ones, at least.
Yeah, that sort of active battle system.
Yeah, and you can like move around in your area as well. So once you engage in a battle, you're not stuck to wherever you are located, like most other Pokemon games, where once a battle is engaged, you can't move at all. You're just battling that Pokemon and using the turn-based system. Now you can move around, so like you can even try to move to like dodge opponents' attacks and things like that. So yeah, the battle mechanic is really new. I really enjoyed it.
So you're controlling the Pokemon.
You're controlling your trainer, and the Pokemon follows your trainer.
Oh, okay.
So you can kind of guide your Pokemon to try to avoid moves.
Gotcha.
I don't think it works as well in the storyline. At least when you're battling directly with other trainers in the story. There are like boss battles so Mega Evolution is like the gimmick for these games, where certain Pokemon can use a Mega Stone to Mega Evolve into a further evolution. So there's some points in the game where you battle rogue Mega Pokemon, and you're kind of in a bubble that you are like a sort of arena where you can't escape the arena, but you can move around to dodge their attacks, and it's a little bit easier in there. I don't play a lot of like linked battling or like the online ladders and things like that people do. I'm more just I play the story and play the game, and that's kind of it for me. But from some streamers that I watch that have been showing the online ranked battle system, because there's some items that you can only get from doing that. It looks like there's more tactics with trying to like avoid other players and their Pokemon as well, through moving around and things like that. So
So do you like this system better than the traditional turn-based system? Because I've heard some conflicting things from different fans.
I don't know if I'd say that I like one better than the other. I like them both for different reasons. I feel like if I were to play, another, which the Legends games are considered mainline games, but like another sort of structured Pokemon game where it's the 8 gyms with the Elite Four, et cetera, I don't know if I would love this battle mechanic for a game like that. And maybe it's just because, again, I've been playing since I was like 5 years old when the first games came out. And so I'm kind of in tune with the turn-based system that I really think Pokemon has kind of perfected in a way. Like, I think that the Pokemon turn-based system is just really good, and that they have really nailed in using that system and adding in different ways to make it interesting throughout the different generations of games and things like that. But I do really, for this new Legends kind of series of games, I like that they're introducing new battle mechanics and different things in, because it does give a different way for new fans and those of us that have been around for a long time. It gives us a new way to play with Pokemon, which I find enjoyable.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this in the past, that it's nice that Pokemon have this like other sort of side series, even if they are like mainline games, but they've got this like other sort of side franchise adjacent where they can really do like whatever experimenting they want to do. Like the mainline games, like those are going to be their own thing. Like I can't imagine they would touch the formula for those, but like, what if we did this and what if we did that? Well, the Legends games let them kind of do that exploring.
Yeah.
I mean, I know on this podcast I've talked about when Arceus, when that came out, it was the most excited I'd been for a Pokemon game in a long time, because I was like, hey, this feels different. This feels like they're doing something really new and kind of experimenting with the Pokemon formula, right? And so, like, to me, this feels like an evolution of that. Like, yeah, we're going to keep playing with that core formula and it'll still be Pokemon. We're not going to do something too radical different, but like we're going to, even add in the platforming and stuff like that, right? We're going to continue to play with this, and maybe the mainline next, core generation game that comes out will be very traditional, and this will continue to be the franchise where they play around with the mechanics, which seems like probably the best way to do that, without angering the fan base.
Yeah, which I think the fan base, you're never going to please everyone. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I do think that they have kind of done a good thing by introducing these sort of side franchises, like you both were just saying, because it does give them a chance to explore and try new things. I think it's good for the fans because, again, it gives us a new way to play. That's not sort of the traditional Pokemon algorithm that they use for, their regular generation games, even when they introduce new gimmicks and things like that, but it's still kind of the same beat of beating 8 gyms and, becoming the champion of the game and things like that. But yeah, and I really like these Legends games too, because they've given me a new way to play, or at least new things that I'm interested in. Like whenever I've played any of the regular sort of generation games of Pokemon, I've never been one to do the like catch them all. That's never been my thing. I've always just been really interested in like completing the story, finding Pokemon that I like, completing the post game, maybe doing some side things if there are some interesting side things in the game. But I've never been a completionist with Pokemon at all until the Legends games, until Legends Arceus came out. That was the very first game where I ever actually caught and filled the entire Pokedex. I had never done that in a game before. But that's
surprising with somebody who's been playing the entire franchise.
Yep. Yeah. I've just never, I've never wanted to put in all the hours and work to go through and catch every single Pokemon. And that suffice it to say, one of the things that Pokemon does well, I think, traditionally, is that they try to create a community and they try to use their games to get you playing with other people, which is great. I was I don't have really many other friends that play the franchise. None of my siblings play or anything like that as well. So there is a thing with trading and having to cross trade for, because there's usually two different games within each generation.
Sure.
And so there's certain Pokemon in one game, certain Pokemon in another game that you
Sword
can't
and
get.
Shield, Red and
Yeah,
Blue.
Yep. And so I would usually have one of the games to play myself. And then I just didn't really have a way to trade for Pokemon from the other games. So that there were some things that like inhibited me from being able to do it as well. But yeah, it was just never really my interest. But then I think because of the catching mechanics that were introduced in Legends Arceus that make it a little bit easier and quicker to catch Pokemon out in the wild, made it more fun. But then also just it became kind of a central part in the game to like really complete the Pokedex and get rewards from doing that and things like that. And so it's become something that's been more interesting to me since Legends Arceus. And I haven't done it in Legends ZA yet, but I plan to complete the whole Pokedex and really try to complete the whole game.
All right, cool. Yeah. Okay, so I've got to ask you about an article I read, and I can't remember where this was. Maybe Game Informer had published this, and I suppose this is a spoiler for one of the side quests. So if you don't want to hear this, like maybe skip ahead a couple minutes. But apparently there is, I assume you have already done this since you completed the game. Apparently there is a mission, a side mission at one point where you go and meet with a character and they give you a choice of Pokemon, and it's the original 3 Pokemon, Bulbasaur and them. And the writer of this piece was very angry because they had to make a choice. So like they wanted to leave and come back and like be able to consider and think about this. Was there any frustration when you had to make the choice of the original Pokemon?
No, I didn't have any frustration at all. It was like super easy for me. It also
is that because you have a default choice for that?
Not necessarily. No, I really enjoy, especially like the first, red, blue games, in yellow. I love Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander. I would say if I had a favorite from those 3, it would be Squirtle. I'm just.
Did you choose Squirtle?
I didn't. I did not. I'm prone to choosing water type. Like water type Pokemon are my favorite in general. So the starters for ZA are Totodile, Chikorita, and Tepig. And I love Totodile. So I chose Totodile for my starter. And so since I already had a water type and I like type diversity on my team, I chose Bulbasaur.
So this piece I read said the exact same thing. They like water Pokemon, so they had the same issue, and they're like, I would normally choose Squirtle, but like, oh no, it's already been set up for me. And so I just thought it was really interesting because they were very upset about it.
Yeah.
And I was like, they didn't kill the other 2 Pokemon.
No, you just pick one. Yeah. It's fun. Because you get to choose your starter obviously at the very beginning of the game, like pretty much every single other Pokemon game.
Sure.
And then there are some side missions that you get to do throughout the gameplay where you actually are able to acquire the 3 starters for the original X and Y games in Kalos. So Froakie, Fennekin, and Chespin. And they all got mega evolutions in this. They didn't have them originally in the original games, which I don't know why they didn't give the starters mega evolutions in those games, but they didn't. So they all got mega evolutions in this game, which is exciting. And then you get that mission where you can choose between Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur. And so I had picked Totodile for my starter. I really like Fennekin from the X and Y Kalos games and its final evolution Delphox. So once I did that mission pretty early on in the game, I was like, cool, I'm going to add this to my team. And so I already had my sort of water fire and sort of the water fire grass trio. And so when I got to that mission, Bulbasaur was the easy choice because I didn't have a grass type Pokemon on my team, and I do like Bulbasaur a lot. And you're able to get the other starters in one of the late game wild zones too. So
okay.
Oh, again, it's late game. Well, actually, it's like when you're pretty much at the very end of the main story. So it's not like you can really play through the main story with all of them. But you can get them at the end of the game. So,
well, at least they offer that olive branch, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I saw that and I read that just because I was interested, because it was somebody mad about Pokemon. I was like, oh no, what now? And then I was like, oh, well, Frankie's coming on the podcast. I should definitely like make a mental note to ask him about this. Did he have the same frustration? All right, cool. Anything else you've been playing?
No, that's really been it. Like recently, before Legends EA came out, I did do a playthrough of Pokemon X. Again, just to play the OG like Kalos region, since this is set in Lumio City. So I just did a quick playthrough, just to refamiliarize myself because it had been a couple years since I had played those games. I like to play the old games every now and then, just start up a fresh file and reboot them. And so I played through Pokemon X, I don't know, probably like August, September, something like that. And had a good time playing those as always. But yeah, other than that, no, I haven't been playing too much.
And you said you played the Star Wars Jedi games.
Yeah, I played
year.
those earlier this year, probably like spring. Yeah, I got a PS5 recently within the year. And so those were two of the first games that I got and played through when I got that. So,
and you said you really enjoyed those.
yeah, I really, really liked them a lot. Again, kind of biased because I'm a Star Wars fan. So,
right.
But I really enjoyed them. It was probably my first time playing in like, a game like that. At least it was the first games that I played on a PS5. I hadn't had a PlayStation since the PlayStation 3 and really played a PlayStation game probably since like high school or very early undergrad. So like early 2010s for me. So yeah, it had just been a while since I'd played a game like that, and it was really fun to play both of them. And I haven't like completed them, like 100%ed them and getting like all of the items that you can possibly get and completing like all the side missions and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed them, and every now and then I go back and like do a couple of things here and there that are still available to do. So yeah, they were really fun to play. I like Cal Kestis as the main character of the games. I can't think of the actor that voices him and that the character is based off of. He's from Shameless. But yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, I really like that first one, and then I just haven't ever gone around to playing that second one. I don't know why. It was just probably it came out at a time when I did not have money or time to to play that game.
Yeah.
But that first one's like very enjoyable. I mean, it helps if you're a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
But I think it's a pretty good game regardless.
Yeah,
even if you're
they're fun.
Not super into Star Wars. All right, cool. Thank you. Let's see. I already talked about Ball X Pit, Ball Cross Pit. I don't think anybody knows how to pronounce the name of that game.
I've mostly just called it Ball Pit, but I also don't know if that's right either. Like just omit the X.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like every time somebody starts to say the name, they're like, and there's like a pause because they're really not sure. So we already talked about that. The other thing new that I played was Shadow Labyrinth. So Shadow Labyrinth is the Pac-Man Metroidvania.
Edgy Pac-Man.
Yeah, the edgelord Pac-Man game, I guess is what it is. So this is sort of tied into that that CG animated film they put on Amazon Prime, The Secret Level.
Oh yeah,
there was an episode that was Pac-Man. So this is tied to that. This game has been trashed a lot. I feel like a lot of people have been very negative on it. I don't think it's as bad as people say. I will say I have not finished it by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm a fair bit into it. I think the biggest problem is it feels very generic. in a lot of ways. So this is a game. There's a bit of a prologue where a spaceship sort of crashes onto a planet. There's a whole metaphysical thing going on beforehand that is not explained. I assume at some point it gets explained later in the game, exactly what's going on with these characters. But anyways, you crash land on this planet. You are this sort of humanoid looking character that might be a robot. It's not entirely clear. And then you have a Pac-Man character that when you wake up out of this sort of stasis chamber, the Pac-Man character wakes up with you. It's a little floating sphere that's yellow. It's called Puck in the game. And Puck is kind of a bastard in this game, which is like an interesting choice for them to say, we're going to take Pac-Man and kind of turn him into a bad guy, because Puck in this game is constantly telling you, hey, you need to go do this for me. Go do this thing. I need this done. You like, don't worry about like whatever you're thinking about. Go do this thing so that we can get off this planet. So it really kind of paints early on Puck as a bad guy, and Puck is Pac-Man, I guess. But anyways, you're going around, you have a sword, you're attacking enemies with it. Puck kind of follows along with you. It really plays out like a standard Metroidvania until you get into certain segments, and there will be sort of rails along the walls, and you can turn those rails on, and then you turn into Puck and you ride those rails. So it's sort of, the rails look like the Pac-Man board and everything, and so you can then jump from those rails to rails. And so there are actually boss fights where the outside of the room that you're in are those rails. So you are having to jump down, attack the boss with your sword, and then jump onto the wall and the ceilings and ride around on the rails in order to avoid boss attacks. I will say so far it's pretty easy. I had heard some complaints about the difficulty of the game. I don't think it's super difficult, particularly when you start getting upgrades to your character. You start upgrading the strength of your attacks and your energy and everything. Then there are some additional updates you get for your character. So one thing that you can do is Puck can sort of take control of your body and consume the dead enemies. So when you kill an enemy, it sort of knocks it out first, and then after a few seconds, it'll sort of disappear and everything. And Puck will sort of consume that body, and that gives you items that you can sort of use to craft upgrades as you go along. So there's this sort of, hey, while you're in the middle of this fight, you need to also consume these dead enemies so that you can get these pieces to upgrade your abilities and everything. Puck can also transform into this like mech suit. And when you're in the mech suit, it allows you to be stronger to battle enemies, but it also allows you to walk across spikes and to walk through like steam vents and everything without getting hurt. So you have basically a limited time bar in which you can do that, and everything that's ticking down. I think it's it's kind of bland looking. It's not a particularly striking or pretty game to look at.
You bought this? I
Yes.
assume? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was on like Game Pass or anything like that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
And yeah, it finally dropped down cheap enough. I was like,
okay.
I really want to see what this weird thing is about. And so, yeah, it's not a bad game. It feels like they took a team that knew how to make a video game and they said, make a Metroidvania game. They started working on it. And at some point somebody came along and said, hey, what if you put Pac-Man into this?
Bandai Namco is like, hey, we'll give you some money if you. But this
Right.
is a Pac-Man game now.
Like, I don't know if this was an outside development team and they showed it to Bandai Namco and were like, hey, would you be interested in publishing this? And they were like, can we stick one of our properties into it? Can we make this a Pac-Man or a Galaga game or something? And can we basically plaster this into there? So I'm not sure what happened along the way. The story feels sort of very generic anime type story. It's a lot about souls inhabiting and switching into different bodies and that sort of thing. I have heard that this game goes into some really interesting directions. And so I think that's what has pushed me to continue forward with it. I'll also say it's not, like I said, I don't think so far it's been super challenging. So it's been fairly relaxing playing it. I'm not constantly like banging my head on the wall or cursing at the controller.
I think that's kind of, I don't know, maybe this is just me as a gamer. I think I want that in a roguelike, not a roguelike, in a Metroidvania. I don't know. There's something about like, I don't want to necessarily have to bash my head into this when there's already likely an expectation of traversing and navigating the world in terms of going back and forth.
Yeah, and when you look back at, the games that give this franchise its name, right? When you look at Super Metroid or Castlevania Symphony of the Night, like those are pretty easy games for the most part. Like, Super Metroid is a game you can beat in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like it's not a huge, it can be challenging, don't get me wrong, but like even at the time when that game came out, it was not a super hard game. Symphony of the Night, I feel like, is a game you can, blast through at least the opening few hours pretty easily. It gets challenging some later parts, particularly figuring out some of the puzzles. But I don't know when we got to the point where Metroidvanias are supposed to be super challenging, like punishing games. And I sort of agree with you. Like that's not a whole lot of fun because the fun comes from figuring your way out through the maze-like levels.
Because I know I talked about it, but Blasphemous was just such a slog.
Right.
I didn't end up ever finishing it. I mean, and it wasn't a bad game, but it was just, it feels particularly bad. I don't know why. More so than like a traditional Souls-like game to like make zero progress.
Sure.
When you just like, oh, well, I'm dead again in the same exact spot.
Right. Yeah. And I think games like Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, I think they do that challenge right by having it, hey, here's where you can get an extra item. You don't have to do this, but like this is kind of a little side quest, and it's going to be super challenging. But the main line through the game is going to be fairly accessible to you. That game is certainly more challenging than this one so far. But I mean, I think the like sort of blandness of this game is probably the biggest strike against it.
Yeah.
And maybe it never goes anywhere that interesting. Like so far, there are those hints that, hey, maybe there's something more interesting to this game. I'm not sure how many of the like comments I've read on it are people who actually finished it.
Yeah. I'll be interested, assuming you make it to the end, how long this game is. Well, I don't know if you've already looked up like a how long to beat.
No, I have not. I will say that like I got the second achievement in the game, and it was like 43% of people have gotten this achievement, which tells me that a lot of people drop off this game very early into it. Because like, again, that's only maybe a couple, 3 hours into it that I got that second achievement. It was not something super hard or challenging to get. But I mean, I this is not a game I would recommend so far to people. I think there's better games out there to play. But
spend your money on, especially.
Right. And Well, I mean, time, like, right?
Yeah,
We all
yeah.
have limited amount of time as well. So I think there are better games out there to play. This one's just kind of a personal curiosity.
When you were talking, the one thing that I kept getting stuck on when you were referring to this yellow Pac-Man orb, but his name was Puck. I was just thinking of the Scott Pilgrim versus the World movie quote about Pac-Man. He goes on a rant and he says something like, what? He says
originally going to be
yeah,
named
he was
Puck.
originally going to be named Puck-Man.
Right,
And
yeah.
not because he looks like a hockey puck, but because of the Japanese paku paku, which is to flap one's mouth open and close. But then the company was worried that if he was named Puck-Man, people would scratch out the P and change it to F.
Yeah. Particularly in the U.S., they were afraid American gamers would, in arcades, would almost certainly do that, and they probably would have. Yeah. So, I mean, at one point you fight one of the ghosts in this game.
Cool.
And it is called a G-host.
Okay.
And so it's like you are fighting the orange G-host, and it's like, oh, okay. So, I mean, it's, it almost feels like they're playing around with this in a way like when let's adapt Hamlet for today, right? And he's not going to have a sword; he's going to have a gun,
A laser sword.
right? So, like, they're doing a lot of kind of stuff like that, and it's very, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's not that clever. It feels like it's very baseline, right? Like, it's G-host.
Yeah, they couldn't name him Inky or Blinky or
Right.
Stinky or Clyde, whichever one he is.
Right. Like, I mean, the ghosts have names in the original arcade game. This is not something that got made up later. So it is kind of weird. At some point, are we going to get this? Yeah, I don't know where this is going.
Maybe the ghosts end up teaming up. They name each other.
Yeah. And it's like, is this going to recontextualize Pac-Man as Pac-Man's the villain all along, which would be kind of interesting. I'm not sure this is going to be the sort of game that has a great revelation, 2/3 of the way through it, where you're like, whoa, this game just blew my mind.
That might be like sort of legacy altering or the deep Pac-Man lore.
Right. Like, there has always been a lot of deep Pac-Man lore.
Yeah.
Those Pac World games,
The Pac-Man backstory we didn't know we needed.
we definitely did not need. Yeah, they're always trying to do that with those old properties. Let's give Dig Dug like some real pathos, and you're like, Dig Dug doesn't need pathos. He has a son. Like, we find that out later. Anyways, so that's what I've been playing. So let's move on into the news. And we have a lot of news, starting off with a lot about Xbox here at the top of the rundown. I guess the big news is they announced Halo Campaign Evolved. This is a full remake from the ground up of the original Combat Evolved, the first Halo game on the original Xbox. I can't call it the Xbox One because of weird naming, but the original Xbox Halo, they are doing this. This is the second remake of Halo Combat Evolved, because they did that anniversary edition which was sort of a new layer of graphics that they layered over it. This is a complete remake from the ground up because they're rebuilding it in Unreal Engine 5. And I guess the biggest news out of this is that this is coming to PlayStation for the first time. So the marquee Xbox franchise is coming to PlayStation. So it's also coming to PC and obviously Xbox. But, this feels like this was the last holdout, the last exclusive franchise that maybe would never come to other consoles. It now is coming to other consoles. So, we'll talk about this more in a few minutes, but Xbox seems to be clearly like, hey, our software is going to be everywhere. We're not holding anything back. There are no more exclusives anymore.
Yeah, and that just feels like the stepping stone to we're just going to be a software company.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, at least in the sense of like maybe they go down the direction of Xbox is essentially turns into a PC. Like we had talked about, I think that was last week. But
We're going to talk about that some more.
they have so many studios that they've bought, right? And like so many IPs that belong to them now that, like we can make all of these games still, but we're just going to publish them on, I guess, either PC, PlayStation, and if they were to do that, maybe even open up space for them to publish some stuff that could go on the Switch as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been weird that they have not put anything on Switch yet, though we have talked about that Nintendo has been very stingy with their development kits for the Switch 2. So, I mean, they have put stuff on the original Switch, the Switch 1, but they have not put anything on the Switch 2 yet.
I was going to say, did they not put the Master Chief Collection? But maybe that's on the Switch 1.
No, no, that has never come to the Switch.
Oh, okay.
That has never come to PlayStation.
Maybe that's just the one that's like always speculated about.
Yeah, well, we have talked about it.
Okay.
Like we have definitely speculated that seemed to make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would put that Master Chief Collection out other places, but instead they are remaking the game again and putting that out other places. So that is now coming out to these.
I guess look forward to remakes of the other 7 Halo games if they're not going to put it on there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess the speculation then becomes this is just of the campaign. This is not of the multiplayer.
Oh, interesting.
Halo is a franchise known for its multiplayer, like maybe more so, I think, in a lot of cases than its campaign. So you sort of look at this and go, is this like testing the waters for an entirely new Halo? And like trying to get people on these other systems more familiar with the franchise if they've never played a Halo. One thing we should note about this is that as part of this, not only are they remaking the original game, but they are also adding 3 additional missions as a prologue. So there will be 3 additional missions that take place before the beginning of Halo, which is a little interesting because at the beginning of Halo, you wake up out of a cryo chamber where you've been like asleep. And so it's a little weird to think, well, what is the prequel going to be like?
I would have assumed one of the games that came out after number 1 was already a prequel.
Well, Reach is.
Okay. I thought that, but maybe you're not, do you not follow Master Chief in that? You following other Spartans?
Yeah, I think in Reach you're playing a different character. Maybe I have that wrong.
A different John Halo.
You are in ODST. You were playing a different character. But Halo Reach, maybe you are playing Master Chief. I can't remember at this point. Yep. There are people who would certainly know that.
Sure.
But that game ends with the fall of Reach, which is one of your giant capital starships and everything. So that sets up, that sort of leads into the beginning of the original Halo. So I don't know how that timeline all works. It's neat to see them doing that. It's always a little weird when we're getting our second remake of a game already. I suppose Halo is 25 years old at this point, so maybe that shouldn't be that weird, but it feels weird. Speaking of Halo, in less happy and good news, the Department of Homeland Security and the White House posted on social media an image from Halo. So it is a picture of the Warthog sort of driving across the ground with the Halo sort of rising up in the distance. And over that image, they posted the text, "Destroy the flood," and then the URL join.ice.gov. For those who don't know, the flood in Halo is a sort of parasitic zombie species. So not to ruin it, but that's like kind of the big twist of the first Halo game is that you encounter the Flood and they come out and they sort of take over other species and take control of their bodies and everything. And you have to destroy all of the Flood in order to save humanity. So using the Flood as tying it to ICE, which is currently trying to deport people, often brutally, often without due process, is, gross on its surface, but then like even grosser when you start thinking about like the sort of dehumanization of this, right? Of essentially referring to them as the people that ICE is targeting as video game villains that are essentially zombie, less than human.
Right? We thought it was bad when they did it with Pokemon.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Pokemon
true.
are at least like cute and have personality.
Yes, if you're going to be compared to something, you would rather be compared to most Pokemon than the Flood. Maybe excluding Mr. Mime, but most of the Pokemon, right? You'd rather be Squirtle or Pikachu than the Flood.
Yeah, I mean, jokes aside, obviously, it's really gross. I think it's, literally what you just said, but I am glad, I know this is jumping ahead, I guess, a little bit, that like the developers really like called it out. That like there's no, and that they did not like mince words about that, right?
Some of the developers.
Sure. But it's just like, it's hard to, I don't know, like it's almost the same thing with the Pokemon one as well. It's like, it's almost hard to fathom that like this is reality.
Yeah, no, like, so Stephen Totillo, who is a video game reporter, reached out to some of the developers. One of them called it abhorrent. Another one said it ought to offend every Halo fan. We should note that Microsoft has not officially made any statement about this, right? So these are the developers sort of speaking for themselves, but Microsoft has so far refused to put out a statement, which, this is their intellectual property being used in this way. So, they have every right legally to say, hey, like, Jim Davis has every right to say you can't put Garfield saying join ICE, right? Deport Odie. Like you can't have that. So it is weird for Microsoft to be very noticeably silent on this.
Well, sorry if you're going to say something.
I was just going to say, it makes me wonder about like messaging an audience as well, in terms of like the red pilling of people like within the past years. And I feel like this particular governmental body is flippant a lot of times with like their media strategy and just different things like that. They kind of just do things a little willy-nilly. But this, I don't know, like it makes me think of like posting this with a direct image in reference to Halo with the link to ICE. Like, is there a targeted audience that they're trying to reach there that they think is cohesive with their message and their messaging and what they're trying to accomplish, and sort of with the red pilling going on and things like that? It just, when I first saw this, when you had sent this out, Justin, and I was looking through it, I took some time to go through and just try to look at some links and stuff to familiarize with myself with some of this stuff, since again, I am a little more casual in the gaming sphere and don't follow the gaming news as much. And when I saw that, that was like the first thing that popped into my mind. It was like, okay, do they think that they have a target audience that they're trying to reach with this group?
That's what I had put in our group chat as well. I mean, like Pokemon is far more broad, than Halo is, but it's like, even if we want to lump like gamers together to use Halo, to use Pokemon, like there's a demographic that is being targeted with this particular messaging for sure. There was something else I was going to say. I don't remember at this point, but yeah, it does. It feels like a very clear target to a particular audience. But I think the other thing is when it comes to a response from Microsoft, or we had talked about, the expected response from the Pokemon company, I also just don't think they care, right? Like, we got our message out. Like, well, okay, sure, we cease and desist us all you want. People saw it, and that's all that really matters.
Yeah, I mean, Trump had posted an AI-generated video, the one of him flying in a jet and dumping poop onto people, to Americans, which is one of the most insane things. Like, I never in my life could I have imagined I would be saying that phrase about a president of the United States. But it used the song Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins, and Kenny Loggins did put out a statement, right, saying, hey, like, I do not agree with my song being used in this way, right? Which to some degree you can go, well, yeah, Kenny Loggins is, part of the resistance. I don't even know if it's that clear. As is he going to include the Caddyshack theme in the next presidential election? Kamala Harris dancing to "I'm All Right" like the gopher in Caddyshack. But like, you do kind of, I think also part of it is, hey man, leave me out of this.
Yeah.
Which I kind of feel like Pokemon and Halo, like at some point you go, hey, don't you just want to be out of this? Like, you don't want to be seen as approving this, right?
Yeah.
Like, from a purely PR standpoint, like, you don't want to be seen as supportive.
And that silence, I think, is reasonable. Maybe is not reasonable to interpret it as such, but like, people are going to. Like, if you like to not even say like, yeah, no, we're not on board with this. Even if individuals there don't have any problem with it, you'd think from a company standpoint, you would distance yourself from this kind of messaging.
Well, and it's not
Again, from a PR standpoint at the very basic.
Yeah. And it's not like they'd be sticking their necks out like they're the first to do this either. Because just like the example that you were providing, but I mean, how many times have we seen Trump play a song at a rally?
YMCA,
like during the election cycle and things like that, and then artists automatically coming out and being like, don't play my song at your rally, please, or I did not approve, I did not know that, no one asked me to play this song, like I did not approve of this happening. Like, it happened at a lot of rallies. And so like I said, they're very flippant about their choices of just kind of doing whatever they want to do with media and using it whatever the way they want to. So it's not like is it Microsoft? It's not like they'd be sticking their necks out. Like, they're the first person to say, please don't use our IP in your media or in your messaging or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and there's a long history of artists telling politicians, do not use my art to promote your candidacy or your ideas, right? Like, I mean, going back to the 80s, you had John Mellencamp telling Ronald Reagan, do not use pink houses as, part of your campaign. And again, not always because the artist has ideological problems with the candidate, but sometimes because they just want to stay out of politics. Which, traditionally that's been a little easier to understand. Now it's maybe a little bit more challenging to stay neutral in the current state of things. So let's continue with our Xbox
block.
Yeah, like, this is maybe not as bad. This is maybe a little bit more expected. Phil Spencer has claimed that Forza Motorsport, this is the more sim-focused game versus Forza Horizon, which are the more open-world, arcadey style racing games, that their focus on that series is on other games right now that are near completion. So we talked about previously on the podcast that a big part of that staff that worked on Forza Motorsport, I believe that's Turn 10 is the developer, that they were laid off. And this seems to be saying, hey, yeah, like, we're not making another one of those anytime particularly soon. It's not necessarily putting it in the grave or anything, but does seem to be saying, hey, that last one did not perform up to expectations, so we're kind of focusing on other games. This is specifically about Motorsport, not about Horizon. That game came out on PlayStation this year and is the best-selling game on PlayStation this year. So I think we will see another Horizon. Well, we have already seen it announced, the one that's set in Japan, which is 6, I believe. So they've already announced that, but like the traditional Motorsport series, they are not going forward with, or at least the immediate future, which I would guess would be the next 2 or 3 years at least.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Windows Central reported on the next-gen Xbox. So I feel like there's been a lot of news kind of coming out about this. We talked about it last week, some of the speculation. Windows Central specifically stated that there will be no multiplayer paywall on the next-gen Xbox. So it's not Xbox Gold anymore. Is it Xbox Essential? Game Pass Essential?
That sounds right.
We have talked about none of us can keep straight the different tiers of Game Pass anymore. So this makes a whole lot of sense when you think, which we'll talk about more in a second, that the next Xbox is going to be more like a PC. You don't get charged to play games online on PC, right? If you want to play Call of Duty online on your PC, you just install it and play it. Versus on a console where you are having to pay for traditionally Xbox Gold, Xbox Live Gold, or you're having to pay for PSN and everything. So this makes sense that there would be no multiplayer paywall, that essentially playing multiplayer games would just be free on the next generation Xbox. They also state that it feels like a traditional console, so it is not just a PC. It is going to have a console-style experience sort of on top of it, so it will have some form of Windows, but like when you turn this on, you can sort of experience it like you would a traditional Xbox console. And as part of that, they also noted that it will run backwards compatible titles. So we had talked about that last week and everything. You know, if this is running on a PC, essentially on Windows, and there's going to be a layer on top of that that provides that traditional experience, and it's going to run backwards compatible titles, that sounds an awful lot like, to me, this is going to be a software layer that allows you to run those backwards compatible titles. So we're talking about the original Xbox, Xbox 360, Xbox One titles. And so then that sounds like that could come to traditional gaming PCs at some point, where you would just be able to run any Xbox game on any PC running Windows. That's not clear, but this does seem to be fairly definitive that your old Xbox games will run on the next generation title. They're not abandoning backwards compatibility. That seems pretty important to me because a lot of people have invested quite a bit of money over the years into their Xbox libraries.
Yeah, absolutely. We had talked about that backwards compatibility as like a big aspect of it, and that's been one of their biggest selling points as well.
Yeah,
I feel like was part of our conversation last week at least.
Yeah, so it seems like a pretty big deal. Last thing about Microsoft, at least directly about Microsoft. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella calls TikTok the biggest competition to Xbox currently, not other consoles. I always love hearing people in social media and gaming trying to pick out what they view as the biggest competition, because sometimes it's TikTok, sometimes it's YouTube, sometimes it's Netflix. Like they're always picking out something different as like whatever is the like hip target of the moment, I suppose. So he picked out TikTok. In other words, saying he doesn't think they're losing market share to Nintendo or Sony necessarily. What is really pulling people away from playing Xbox games is TikTok. And, you know, like talking to students, particularly when I ask them, how are they spending their time? A lot of them are, I'm sitting on the couch scrolling through TikTok for 2 hours. And that's 2 hours in which they're not playing video games on any console.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So he noted a couple other things here. He notes that they are now the largest publisher of games with the Activision acquisition. So this kind of goes back to that idea, right, of how they view themselves and everything. And that they really want Xbox to be everywhere in the way he described it as Microsoft Office is, which when I first read that, I thought, what? Microsoft Office is not something I think about being everywhere. I suppose it's on Windows and Mac. You can get it on either of those platforms. But I think he's talking about Office 365 with that, right? The fact that you can now access Office on anything that has a web browser.
Sure.
So your phone, your tablet, your gaming console, like anywhere you can access that because, you know, refrigerators have web browsers built into them now. So anything that has a web browser can access Office. I think that's really what he's talking about when he says, you know, similar to the way Office is.
That makes sense. And I mean, that has been, right? Everything is an Xbox.
Yeah.
And so it'll be interesting to see with this new console and, you know, whatever it ends up looking like, how they continue to implement that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the format, you start thinking of streaming, right? So when you start thinking about streaming, particularly, everything becomes an Xbox. So your Roku is an Xbox, right? If you can connect a controller via Bluetooth to your Roku or your Apple TV or any of those sort of devices, you can stream games onto it. You know, the latest and greatest games streaming. And so in that way, right, like it starts making sense in comparison to something like Office 365. If you have a web browser, you can access Office. If you have a web browser, you can play Xbox games. And that seems to start to make sense. I don't know how compelling an argument that is to the average consumer, and I don't know how confusing of an argument it is to the average consumer.
I also don't know how compelling it is to like a hardcore gamer, right? Like they've already got all the stuff that they would need.
Sure.
And so like for me, you would be targeting somebody that's a little bit more casual or engages every once in a while or sees a game and it's like, I would play that. But I also, it feels like one of those situations where, you know, as we've talked about with so many different things, who is this for? And how are you making it accessible to them?
I feel like I would fit into that average consumer kind of role. And at least just from looking into it and talking about it now, I will say that it does feel kind of confusing just from like an average casual game player. But that is to say, like, I don't have a ton of information on it. And so, like, if you know, once things are released, there's videos that come out, ads and things like that describe it, like that could completely flip the switch, trigger me into being interested.
Sure.
Or seeing it as something that is compelling to purchase or easily accessible maybe to play lots of different titles in sort of a single space or things like that. But yeah, I think until that happens, like it's something that I don't think the average consumer, at least like myself, I hadn't heard or known about this and what was going on. And when I was looking into it, I was like, okay, I think I kind of get what's going on, but I'm not 100% sure. So,
and I think it'll ultimately, and I don't know, I mean, I'm sure they've rolled this out in some instances. I think it ultimately is going to come down to ease of use, right? Like,
Right.
Is this easy to get set up and playing on? Or do I have to go through a bunch of different menus and all of these different things to figure this out? Like, I think you really need to you need to streamline that experience to be as efficient as you possibly can, I would think.
Yeah. When I talk about this stuff, I often, I don't mean this disparagingly, but it needs to be idiot proof.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I'm thinking as well, especially if we're thinking it's for an average or casual gamer who maybe doesn't interface with like gaming consoles or anything like that on a regular basis. What feels like should be obvious to do might not be obvious to do.
Right. Like, I mean, I think when you look at something like Roku, right? Part of the success of Roku is Roku made streaming idiot proof to some degree. Like it made, because, even when we started to get smart televisions, smart TVs, the interfaces are so bad in most cases.
Yeah.
And the Roku interface is, I would say, outside of Apple TV, which I really like Apple TV's interface, but Roku made it really simple. It made it really easy for anyone to sit down with a Roku and start accessing streaming, right? So obviously, people who are kind of like growing up and, digital natives, like easy, people our age, who grew up with the internet, pretty easy. But like even like our parents and grandparents, like it made it fairly easy for people to start doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing that Xbox has done so far is as simple as that. And I think when you talk about how many hoops they have to jump through, how many menus do you have to go through, I think that becomes the difficulty. Like even connecting a Bluetooth controller, right, to a device.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like that's not super hard, but like I know a lot of people who have never connected an outside Bluetooth device to something.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be hard. Is it intuitive? Right.
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the intention as well plays a role, because what you were just saying, Justin, like really stuck out to me. The OG like smart TVs with the really horrible interfaces that were so confusing. I kind of see those as like the intention was to make a TV where people still had cable, but was also a smart TV so they could use it for other things. And then when I look at the Roku TV, which I have a Roku TV, I see that as like we are making a smart TV for people that aren't using cable or are like cutting cable ties and are really
streaming first.
Streaming first. And that's their main way of getting entertainment. And so when I think of something like this, I'm also thinking of like what's the intention with this, like with this change or this update or whatever they're doing, like what are they focusing on, and how are they targeting that?
Yeah, and I think that becomes challenging, right? When you think about, okay, well, how are you accessing Xbox games 3 years from now? How are you accessing Xbox games? Are you accessing it through your new dedicated Xbox console, right, which has to have an interface, but apparently is going to allow that interface to also install Steam and Epic Game Store and these third-party stores, right? We've already seen with the ROG Ally X, their handheld system, that can be pretty confusing to people who are, not super techie, right? Not super good working with computers. And then you're also going to have people who have dedicated gaming computers who aren't going to access it through that interface at all. They're going to be accessing it through the Xbox app on Windows PCs. And then you're going to have people who are accessing Xbox and its games through streaming platforms, right? Whether it's on a Roku or some other platform. And how do you consolidate all of those so that experience from moving from one device to another feels seamless? And in some ways, Microsoft is best situated to do that versus, say, Nintendo or Sony, because Microsoft is a software company, right? Like that's theoretically what they should be best at. But in some other ways, like, it's not there yet. And so I don't know, like, the experience of using the Xbox app on a Windows PC is very different than using an Xbox, and very different than streaming, like through, through their streaming app and everything. So it's not there yet. And I feel like that has to, when I say it has to be idiot proof, I sort of mean like you have to make that simple and accessible and non-confusing to people. Because the average consumer isn't going to put forth the effort to figure it out, right? They want it to be super simple. Netflix works because Netflix is super simple. And for the most part, their interface is the same no matter how you're accessing Netflix.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. I feel like this is the big gamble Microsoft is making, right? And if it doesn't pay off with this next console launch, feels like they're going to be out of the game industry, or at least the hardware side. Yeah. Let's see. Amazon the other day announced cutting several thousand jobs across the company. Those cuts included at the studios working on their MMO, The New World, and also an untitled Lord of the Rings game that they were working on. After those cuts were announced, they announced the shutdown of The New World, saying that it will continue to run through 2026, but then after that, there will be no new content added. So the content that is out right now is it. They're not putting out any new content for it, but they are going to keep the servers up through 2026. This seems to be Amazon basically abandoning game development, which is not shocking because every time one of these big tech companies tries to move into game development, like Google has and others, outside of Microsoft, like all these companies end up bowing out fairly quickly afterwards and finding out that developing games is way more difficult than they assumed it was. Media companies also in the same boat. Disney, they tried to develop games internally.
I would think the Warner Brothers, I feel like we talked about as well, outside of Hogwarts Legacy, which made them a bajillion dollars.
And Mortal Kombat, obviously,
sure,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they have certainly scaled back their development, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they have shut down several studios. We'll talk about the Multiverses guys here in a little bit, but they have sort of abandoned that. And video games are, I mean, I think the big lesson is video games are very hard to do.
They're hard and they're expensive, right? At least when I assume the scale that Amazon is trying to make them at. Like Amazon's not publishing some small little indie title. They're making a Lord of the Rings game that people are going to expect to be some massive AAA level experience.
They were taking big swings.
Yeah. It's one of those things that if it just feels like this is kind of bleeding money, and New World's been out for probably 5 years at this point. Like it's been going for a little while, and I knew people who played it when it first came out. But yeah, like none of this is necessarily surprising.
Yeah, I mean, they recently have sort of rebranded their Luna service, so that is their streaming game service, and it seems to me they've added quite a few games, so I get that as part of my Amazon Prime membership, and when they did that, they sent me an email about it, and I clicked through just to see. I've tried the Luna service before just to see how well it worked. And they had added quite a few games. Like they had Hogwarts Legacy on there, which is a big game to have on that service. So it seems like they're kind of refocusing on being a game distributor rather than a game publisher.
Yeah. Well, and I think, obviously Amazon owns Twitch still.
Sure.
And, I know that's, I don't know if it's necessarily a successful relationship, in terms of like the money it makes. I think they lose money on Twitch, but, it's still just a big, they're still like in the industry or like adjacent to it, but kind of taking that step back from maybe we're not the producers, we're the distributors.
Yeah. I mean, my understanding is Twitch is yes, still losing money for them. And that essentially if they didn't have a company, an owner with unlimited pockets, Twitch would be shut down on its own. Like Twitch could not survive without a company of Amazon size owning it, and being willing to bleed money on it, until conceivably they can figure out a way to monetize it successfully enough. But that was true of YouTube for a very long time. For a very long time, Google lost money on it until my understanding is now they do actually make money off of YouTube. Let's see. Speaking of WB Games, the former directors from Multiverses, which WB shut that studio down when they shut that game down, they have founded a new studio called Airlock Games. They announced a game called What the Stars Forgot, which is a 16-bit, and these are their words, sim management horror game inspired by Star Trek. There's a trailer. You can go out there and look and watch the footage of it.
Oh, that's good because I can't even picture what that possibly means.
After watching that trailer, I still can't explain that game to you. Like 16-bit horror game inspired by Star Trek with sim management components sounds pretty interesting to me, but I still don't know what the actual gameplay of that game is.
Sure.
Maybe FTL.
I was thinking, FTL plus horror.
Right, because FTL is basically a Star Trek game to some degree.
Sure.
You are managing your crew and sending them to like go work on the shields, go work on this. So it seems to be maybe something in that vein, but it's not entirely clear from the trailer. But it is cool to see, them start up a new studio and everything. Multiverses was not a terrible game. It was just a horribly mismanaged game. We talked a little earlier about Pokemon Legends ZA. It has been wildly successful. I know that's shocking. A new Pokemon game has been wildly successful. I feel like they can slap Pokemon onto anything at this point and it will be wildly successful.
And I'll buy it.
I'm still waiting for the Pokemon home pregnancy test. I figured that exists in Japan. It's got to. But anyways, there is. They sold 5.8 million copies in the first week. That apparently included both physical and digital versions of the game. That is down slightly from Arceus, which was, I believe, a little over 6 million. But apparently about half of those were on Switch 2. So, there's a whole lot of people who moved on to Switch 2 who are buying this and buying the, I guess, enhanced version for the Switch 2. So that's successful though. Like, I mean, that's not negative. Like when we say is slightly down from that one, that's not to say, oh, this is terrible. It's also important to note, like this is coming out at I feel like Arceus came out in like January or February and kind of a downtime of year, whereas this is coming out in the middle of fall when there's lots of other big games launching around it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, just in terms of like putting it into perspective, most companies would be thrilled if their game sold 5.8 million copies across its entire lifetime, right?
I also wonder, they did release that Switch 2 new bundle that includes a copy of this. So if you buy a Switch 2, you can get a copy of this instead of Super Mario Kart World. Mario Kart World.
Yeah. Not super.
Yeah, nothing super about it. Just plain Mario Kart. But anyways, they did put that out, and I do wonder, like, that seems like that's going to be under a lot of Christmas trees.
I would think so.
Like that particular bundle, right? Like there's probably a lot of kids who haven't upgraded to a Switch 2 yet. They're getting it for Christmas. They're going to get the Pokemon bundle because they're big Pokemon fanatics. And so I feel like the number of, this is a game that's not, while front loaded, it is not entirely front loaded, right? This is going to continue to sell several more million through the end of the year.
I think, and this also just, I don't know, it feels like a game that will continue to sell well for a while.
Yeah, right? The Pokemon games do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this game will end up somewhere 15 million plus copies by the time it's done, I'm sure. Because that's been generally the Pokemon titles. It is the best physical sales in 2.5 years. So it's the best-selling physical game in the last 2.5 years. Fastest-selling physical game in the last 2.5 years.
Oh, of all games.
Yeah.
I was thinking that
No, not just Pokemon.
I was thinking
games.
just the Pokemon. I was like, all right, that's at least Scarlet and Violet. I don't know if there's another one in that period of time, but wow, of all games, okay.
Yeah, I mean, Pokemon fans show up.
Yeah.
That's the reason we get a lot of Pokemon games, because they show up and support that franchise. They complain about it, but they plunk down the money and support it. So, and this is a very well reviewed one.
Yeah.
So I think that helps too. I think if this was being a non-new generation game, it'd be easier to skip this if it was not reviewing so well. But, obviously, Frankie, you earlier were talking about how much you enjoy it. General consensus online seems to be very positive about it. Some people are nitpicking it, but like for the most part, everyone seems really happy with it. So that certainly benefits, with sales.
Yeah, I know my mentality around it has been, once prelims are over, I will probably get this for myself as well. But I did not want to get it. I think it came out like literally the first day, and so I was like, it'd probably be a bad idea. It would just be sitting on my shelf for a month.
I am a little surprised. I mean, again, 5.8 million, like you can't knock that. But just in terms of like looking at it in relation to the other Switch Pokemon games that have come out in the past couple of years, that it's at 5.8 million, because it does not only put it below Legends Arceus, it also puts it below Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield, and Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl for their first weeks. All of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Sword and Shield, and Legends Arceus were all over 6 million, but within that like sort of 6 million mark. And then Scarlet and Violet hit 10 million in their first week, within their first 3 days actually. And so I guess I'm only surprised because Legends Arceus was so well reviewed and so well received by like the community and by people even I feel like outside of the Pokemon community that like picked it up for maybe their first Pokemon game because of how much they were seeing about it.
Some Labs fans coming back to it because it was something fresh and new.
So with this being like sort of the second generation of the Legends the Legends series, I thought it was a little interesting that it was down. Also with Scarlet and Violet picking up 10 million and that being like the most recent game before Legends EA, I was a little surprised to see it drop that much. But again, 5.8 million you can't knock. I was just, when I was looking at these numbers and things like that and I saw that it was behind some of these other games, that just, again, as a fan of all of the games and someone that purchases them, plays them, has spent time with them all, I was just a little surprised about that.
Yeah, well, I think Justin makes a good point about bundles and Christmas, but I wonder how many people have a Switch 1 and have purposefully not bought it because I don't want to buy the Switch 1 version. I'm just going to wait until I upgrade to the Switch 2 and then I'll get it. Especially we know the issues that the previous Pokemon, the later Pokemon games have had on the original Switch. And like, I don't want to deal with all that if that matters to them. So I'm just going to wait to get it when I actually upgrade the console. Yeah. I could see that maybe it's not 4.2 million people, but I could see that being a reason why numbers are also potentially down.
That is a good take. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think also there is a bias towards the, what people perceive as the mainline Pokemon games, right? The new generation. Like I see there being more excitement for that than one of these Legends games, even though, as you noted, the last one did very well and was met very well by fans. I think another thing to consider when we look at sales, particularly looking at like a series like this, you also have to factor in this is $10 more than those games have ever been.
This is $80.
No, it's 70.
70.
But I think all of the ones on Switch 1 were 60.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then also you have to factor in the current economic state, right?
Sure.
Like inflation and other economic concerns. So I do wonder if we look at things like NBA 2K and Madden and Call of Duty, will those comparatively also see drops this fall related to economic issues? So there might be a lot of factors kind of contributing. I think the fact that it's so close to those other ones, just right under 6, and most of those are a little over 6, speaks well to this not being, this is not a disaster or anything. It's not like it sold half as many or something.
Yeah.
Let's see. EA employees have claimed that they're being forced to use artificial intelligence. In some cases, this is producing flawed code, which then they have to go back and manually fix. Yeah. I feel like this is the most obvious thing that, executives saying, hey, we have to integrate AI. This is going to save us time and money. And employees saying, no, it's not. Please don't make us do this. And this seems to be producing a lot of frustration on developers' side.
Yeah, it seems like the classic case of it's going to save you time on the front end, but you're going to put out a buggy game that people are going to complain about, and then you have to put in all the time and effort to fix it. And you might just game buyers might not give you that second chance afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, we have seen games launch in terrible states and just nobody ever eventually shows back up for it, right? There are those success stories. There's the cyberpunks, where it launches in a horrible state and eventually they get it into a good state. But for every one of those, there's games that launch in a broken state and fans just never return.
Yeah, maybe it is, and we're just not in those conversations, but it feels like Concord should be the ultimate horror story of where he's we cannot not mess this up, but let's not take these these risks of implementing something brand new that we know isn't super fine-tuned. And we launch a game and it's shuttered after 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Concord, Anthem, there's been a long list in recent years of games that felt like day one they were dead. People were, hey, we're going to fix these problems. And it's don't bother. Nobody cares. Redfall is a good example of that, right? A game that I think they eventually just gave up and said, hey, we're not going to actually try to fix all of this because nobody cares. Let's see. Battle Arena Toshinden 1 through 3 are getting re-released on modern platforms. Nobody cares. I just think it's really interesting that Battle Arena Toshinden, we're getting re-releases of everything. These were fighting games on the PlayStation. Battle Arena Toshinden 1 was really kind of the game that sold people on the original PlayStation. When they were showing the demos of the Saturn next to the PlayStation, Battle Arena Toshinden was this fully 3D fighting game when nobody had ever seen that on a home console before. And it looked better than Virtual Fighter did on the Saturn. And it really sold a lot of people on buying a PlayStation. It's not the best fighting game, but it just looked cooler at the time. So it'll be interesting to see. One thing that was kind of interesting about those games is that was one of the first times I ever saw a performance versus a graphics mode. So I don't know if it was in the original, but I'm pretty sure it was in part 2 where you could choose to have the graphics slightly degraded and have the game run at 60 frames a second, or have slightly better graphics and have it run at 30 frames a second. And so I can imagine if you're putting a collection out of this, you could, say, hey, you can just have the good graphics with 60 frames a second now. We have the horsepower to do that. So interesting. I don't know how much people are clamoring for that, but it's always cool to see those games made accessible. We have talked about this before, that Assassin's Creed Shadows has been rumored for the Switch 2, is now been officially confirmed. It is coming out on December 2nd. We mentioned earlier Kirby Air Riders. Has been announced as part of its second direct, this one a full hour, that it will not have DLC or get a sequel. It will not get a sequel. I think this is Sakurai saying he will not make a sequel. Nintendo will make a sequel eventually if this game sells well enough.
Yeah, they'll make another Air Riders. It just might not be a Sakurai game.
But anyways, he did do that 1 hour additional look. I've never seen something so meticulous going over a game before. It really feels like when he does those, it feels like you're reading. Games don't do this as much anymore, but you used to see the back of the box of a game and it would just be bullet points of, we have 13 levels and we have 24 characters and we have 50 customizable costumes and that's all those videos feel like. He's just going bullet point by bullet point. Here's every feature in this game. I'm going to go into excruciating detail explaining it. I don't know what good that does, except for people who are already planning to buy that game, right? Like, I don't think other people just casually browsing YouTube are going, hey, what is this? A 1 hour video on Kirby Air Riders? What? You mean I can customize Meta Knight? I don't feel like that's selling people on those games, but I do appreciate Sakurai. He seems to come by his passion honestly. He is not a marketer. He just really likes what he does, and sort of obsessive over it. Mario, you cursed us with this next story because you shared this in the group chat, that WB is launching a Minecraft movie for your consideration campaign for the Oscars. So they are apparently campaigning. People who don't follow the Oscars may not know this, but film studios will pick particular movies and campaign for them. It's not like they just say, hey, everything's available for Oscar consideration. They pick specific films and campaign for those films. They are doing this for a Minecraft movie. The webpage, mentions for director, for writer, for,
actors and actresses,
supporting actresses, right, all the different things, but also talked about visual effects, makeup, costume design, all that sort of stuff. So if Minecraft movie is going to win an Oscar, what do you think it's most likely to win an Oscar in?
Best Picture. I'm just saying, I said this in the group chat. The Oscars have the chance to do the funniest thing of all time. Could you imagine? It would be so good.
If it just gets a nomination or it actually wins.
If it won. I mean, if it got nominated, that would also that would maybe also be the funniest thing of all time if it got nominated for Best Picture. But if it won, they would make a movie about that.
You have all these serious
and the
films.
The Oscars love movies about movies.
That's true. They
They
do.
make a movie about the movie that won the Oscar so that it could win another Oscar.
You have one battle after another. They're like showing a clip from it, and then they're showing the Minecraft movie.
They show the Steve's Lava Chicken.
Oh, that would have
scene.
to be it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That or the Chicken Jockey.
yeah, chicken jockey. They'd have to do that because you would have like, then you have to let like 20-year-olds into the audience who are going to like throw toilet paper and popcorn in the middle of the Oscars, right? Just for the chicken jockey.
Well, it's also just funny if you go onto that WB website and like see all the films because it's like, here's a Minecraft movie, and then next to it for your consideration, Sinners. It's like
It's like these actual artful films, right? Like well-reviewed movies where you think like Sinners probably will get nominated
Sure.
for something, right? A Minecraft movie. Though I did comment on this. Doesn't Jack Black seem like the actor most likely to sneakily win an EGOT?
I assume he has to at least have a Grammy, I would think. Tenacious D had to have won something.
Yeah, because like you feel like Tenacious D could have won a Grammy for something, right? Like I don't know why they didn't win Record of the Year, but like
One of those small metal album of the year or comedy album of the year or
Right.
something like that.
and then you're like, okay, Jack Black does television. He's probably won an Emmy. Actually, I think I looked it up. He has won like a
Guest.
yeah, he won an Emmy for like some children's show. Like
okay.
I think he did a voice for or something.
I could see him if he was on like Yo Gabba Gabba or something like that. They brought in all the music artists over time.
So then it's just really an Oscar and a Tony, and you feel like he could win a Tony for like the Tenacious D musical or something.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It was like, I don't think it would win, especially when you consider the music in Sinners and K-pop Demon Hunters is going to probably get multiple nominations. Steve's Lava Chicken could actually get nominated for original
Right.
song.
Yeah, I mean, because he is a multi-threat artist, right? You feel like Jack Black would be the weirdest, like, person to win an EGOT, but like also somehow the most likely of a lot of stars. Like I could see him winning it before Ariana Grande.
Yeah, her or Taylor Swift, like,
Yeah.
I mean, like she obviously has like the documentaries and stuff. And so, that might help her case. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, it sounds silly, but like, yeah, it wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a total shock and everything. So like maybe this is the way, like this is the beginning of his journey to the EGOT.
Yeah. So anyways, you heard it here first. Write to your local Academy Awards representative. Tell them to vote for a Minecraft movie.
I think people would be even happier about a Minecraft. I have not seen a Minecraft movie. I'm going to throw that one out there.
It's peak cinema.
I'm sure, and I'm adding it to my list.
We saw it in the theater. We truly suffered. There was no escape.
I mean, I can't. It had me literally in tears laughing at one point. I will not lie.
We should note that's in the last 5 minutes of the movie. So you have to sit through the entire rest of the movie to get to that part.
I just think people would be more supportive of a Minecraft movie winning an Oscar or even Best Picture than they were for Amelia Perez.
Yeah, probably.
Oh, what? Like, yes. And also, like, how, like, bizarre is that to think, like, people would be like, at least it's not Amelia Perez. Could be worse. Yeah, like, I don't know, like, because it does surprise you sometimes when you start looking at what films have won Academy Awards. Particularly because a lot of films end up winning it for like visual effects or something, or makeup, or something that you don't really think of. A film will have an Oscar for that.
Yeah, and that's where, like, if we're talking about this seriously, I could see it getting nominated for effects.
Yeah,
Yeah, Do I see it winning? No, but like I could see it getting nominated for something like that.
Yeah, but like in a year where I don't feel like there's been a standout big visual effects film, right? Something that broke new ground that I can think of offhand.
Yeah, just say I think like Superman or even Sinners would probably win ahead of it. But,
Sure. Those are significantly better films.
Yeah,
than
but
a
like
Minecraft
it's one of those things that like I think it's funny to see this, but then when you think about it, it's like, all right, yeah, there's probably actual legit areas where I could see it getting recognized.
I think you're right about the song, because that's actually always a problem is, does the film actually have an original song? Like that was the problem with the first Wicked movie is I don't think
Did it not have an original.
Yeah.
Just straight from the musical.
And so I think for this one, they wrote each of the stars an original song for this second part so that they can potentially win an Oscar, at least get nominated.
Otherwise, yeah, it's the one song from Sinners. All the others are like actual traditional songs.
Sure,
so those can't get nominated. But that one, guarantee, 100% will get nominated. You'll get at least one, if not two, from K-pop Demon Hunters.
Absolutely.
And the Wicked songs, I guess. I'm sure there's other stuff as well, but
it's been pretty dire some years, and that the number of original songs, right? Because it has to be original, like made for that film.
Yeah. I part of me, like thinking back on it, it's like they started doing that with all the James Bond movies, and like a number of them won. And part of it is just like, if them thinking like, if we just write a song, we get somebody famous to write and sing a song, we can get at least a nomination.
Well, I mean, like in the years before the Disney Renaissance, right? Like you weren't having a whole lot of movie musicals. So you didn't have a lot of, you had soundtracks. So that was an era when you had people writing original songs for a movie soundtrack, right? But you didn't actually have a whole lot of songs that maybe stood out in a movie, right? And now I feel like, well, Disney's kind of moved away from this, but like you are getting something like Let It Go, like most years out of an animated film, like an original song written for that. Like I think Rihanna wrote an original song or two for the Smurfs movie that came out this summer.
Makes sense.
Yeah, because that's the reason you get Rihanna to do that, right? Because you want her to make a couple of songs for it to bring audiences in. And so, I think, and they did that for a Minecraft movie, which was kind of weird. I think actually, didn't Jack Black get nominated for the Super Mario Brothers song?
Oh, you know what? I think he did.
So
the Bowser song?
Yeah. So
Peaches.
I don't think he won, but I think he did get a nomination for that.
The other one, and I think there's actually a second original song. It's whatever the song they sing at the end of the movie when they're like in the arcade, all happy at the end of it. I think that's also an original song.
Yeah. So we shall see.
Yeah.
Oscar night, we might be saying, hey, Jack Black is 2 or 3 of the legs towards an EGOT.
I just think it would be so funny. Again, I know it's not going to get nominated for Best Picture, but it would be so funny if it got nominated for Best Picture, because all the people who are like, well, I got to watch all the Best Picture nominees, they would have to watch a Minecraft movie. And I say that particularly because my mom is one of those people, and I think that would also be so funny.
Well, I feel like one of the theater chains, it may be AMC, but every year they'll do like a marathon of all the Best Picture nominees.
Yeah.
And so I imagine the people who are showing up watching like one battle after another, Sinners, a Minecraft movie.
It's a palate cleanser.
Just mixed into the middle of that. And them just being like, what is going on? Am I hallucinating? Like, is there some sort of subtext to this film I'm just not picking up on? Yeah, that would be pretty fantastic. I feel like occasionally you do get that really weird movie that gets nominated for Best Picture, and there is something sort of joyous about it. that populist movie that gets nominated is always a little enjoyable. All right. One last kind of, I think, good story coming out of this. Baldur's. So this is not recent, is my understanding, but this is the head of development for Baldur's Gate 3 in a recent interview noted that when they were making that game, they had already started recording dialogue, and there's a lot of dialogue in Baldur's Gate 3. And they had been recording it with he and she pronouns, right? So they would record two versions, like he did this, she did this, right? Recording the line twice. So depending on the gender of your character, you would get an appropriate line. And he noted that at some point they called the actors back in because they wanted to add gender neutral pronouns. So they re-recorded the lines again using they, them pronouns. And he specifically in this interview said, hey, I think this is like sort of groundbreaking, and I think it's really important work. He noted that this was an expense to do. Obviously, the more time you have voice actors in the studio, the more money you have to pay them. But this is a good sign. I feel like this is a positive step forward in the game industry. In the last few years, there have certainly been games that have been very sort of queer focused that have done this. We're seeing more and more games that allow you to sort of choose pronouns. And I think for a game of this scale and magnitude and everything to go that step, right, to make that effort, seems like an incredibly positive step forward.
Yeah, agreed.
We don't hear, like, you think back like 10 years ago, you did not hear about this in video games, right? Like, you did not hear about that. And it's particularly in role-playing games that have traditionally offered a whole lot of customization. Mm-hmm. That was not something that was being offered. And to see that now becoming, in one of the biggest role-playing games ever released, to see that becoming more standard, to like care and to take the effort, seems like a very positive step forward for the industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
So some good news to end on. Sometimes we end on a bad story. So like this week, we definitely wanted to end on a positive story. All right. That leaves our big question. And since we are 2 days out from Halloween, I feel like we've done this big question before, but I feel like it changes from year to year. If you had to dress up 2 days from now for Halloween as a video game character, what video game character would you choose to dress up as? And Mario, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I think the character that came to mind, because I played it for the first time this year, is Sissel from Ghost Trick. If you've seen Ghost Trick, it's the main guy with like the really pointy hair and like the red suit. Be him.
All right.
That's all I got.
I mean, any particular reason?
No, I think he's it's a good character. It's a great game. And it's one of those costumes that, like, if you were wearing that and somebody pointed it out to you, that's like I'm just going to like go and have a conversation with you, because it's like niche enough that the people who are going to recognize it are going to know exactly what it is.
Yeah, because I feel like that's a character that would not get recognized except by people who had played that game.
Right, as compared to if you were to dress up as Mario or Luigi or something like that, people are going to recognize that pretty immediately. But like having this more niche character, those are the people that are going to recognize it. I think that's always fun.
Yeah. All right, cool. So Frankie, how about you?
Yeah, when I was thinking of this, I was thinking of a lot of characters that like I really enjoy. Like earlier I mentioned that I used to love playing Kingdom Hearts, so I was like, oh, Sora would be fun. I mentioned that I love the Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order games.
Those Sora, you'd have all those buckles to have to deal with.
I know. Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, Cal Kestis could be cool, like from the Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order games. So I was like thinking of these characters that I enjoy, but I was like, who would I really like to actually dress up as, like wear a costume, go out for Halloween? And so the character I ended up actually coming up with is Pit from Kid Icarus slash where I mostly know Pit from is Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii. Pit was always my go-to character for that game.
So Toga.
Exactly. And I like the
Get some
wings. Yeah, partial angel, partial like Grecian vibes that his character has. I just like the design, and so that was like one of the ones that came to my mind that I'm like, I could actually see myself like doing that costume.
Cool.
Carry around a bow and arrow all night.
Yeah,
no, that'd be a fun costume. And again, I feel like that's a costume that that is specific enough that not everybody would get it at first sight, right?
I think people are just like, oh, it's Cupid, or oh, it's an angel but it has a bow and arrow for some reason.
It's the archangel,
one of God's warrior angels.
Yeah. And I feel like it's not a costume that would be too difficult to actually put together with like, because I feel like you can find, at least at Halloween time, like Grecian inspired costumes pretty easily.
Absolutely.
You can always find angel wings for Halloween. And like the Greek sort of like gold laurel crown that he wears on his head, like all that stuff is sort of easy to source as well. So
yeah, that's definitely one of those costumes that you could probably just like put it together from things you had. I mean, not all around the house, but like if you were creative enough, you could make a lot of that
you
stuff
could DIY it.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm at a point now where I'm trying to figure out, like, in modern versions, does Pit have orange or reddish hair?
I think it's
like a brownish, maybe auburn.
Yeah, like a brown, maybe red.
Okay, because like in the original game, his hair is like orange, and in the Captain N cartoon series, he has orange hair. But like I was trying to think, like, am I confusing my memory of those? And in the newer versions, I was thinking like it wasn't as prevalent.
Yeah,
I
think in the Super Smash Brothers games, it's more brown, leans more brown.
Yeah, it's definitely more brown.
Yeah. Okay. So like you wouldn't even need a wig for that.
Nope.
Like that would fit perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So
Justin's going to out obscure both of us.
yes, but my obscure character is going to also prove confusing to people. So my choice was Bounty Bob from Miner 2049er and its sequel, Bounty Bob Strikes Back.
As Frankie and I both Googled Bounty Bob.
Bounty Bob.
So, like, the main reason I thought Bounty Bob would be really kind of funny to do is that Bounty Bob basically wears overalls, and it's blue and red. So he basically kind of looks like Mario, except that he is a miner. So he has like a mining hat with the light on it and everything, the hard hat with the light. So I feel like if I dressed up as Bounty Bob, I'd be walking around and people would be like, so you're Mario, right?
Who's that crazy Mario?
Why do you have that helmet on? And so
the picture has like this big bushy like beard and like the unkempt hair. It's like Mario that needs a haircut.
yeah, so think prospector sort of character, right?
Well, I was gonna say, when I looked it up, I feel like you might get Mario, but you could potentially get the prospector from Toy Story 2, Stinky Pete.
Oh yeah, you could,
go ahead.
Like a Yosemite Sam.
Well, that's what I was like. There's somebody that's like a Looney Tunes, and it didn't feel like Yosemite Sam, but I think it probably just is. I don't know who else, because it obviously wouldn't be Elmer Fudd, but
well, I think the color scheme and the hat and everything, right? In some images he's wearing kind of a cowboy hat, and some he's wearing the miner hat and everything. So I was trying to think of an obscure character, but I was also thinking like what would be one that would also like potentially be even like confusing to people seeing it. So I think I would get a lot of, oh, you're Super Mario. Particularly if you told somebody you're dressed as a video game character, they'd be like, that's a weird Super Mario costume. Though I feel like in Mario Odyssey, he wears a cowboy hat at some point. Like you can buy a cowboy hat.
Yeah, there's tons of character customization in the new Mario Kart World game as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's like lots of costumes, so they might just think you're one of those too.
I always think of him in the sombrero in Mario Odyssey. I feel like that stands out to me.
You said cowboy hat, and I was thinking of, was it Mario Party 2 has like the cowboy land? I feel like on the box he's wearing a cowboy hat in that game.
That is probably true.
Yeah. I can't prove it to you anything other than that, but I have pretty strong. It's one of those N64 ones where he's wearing a cowboy hat.
I feel like they definitely did do a cowboy map at some point in that. I feel like, yeah, that feels like something Mario should have done by now, right? Like there should be a cowboy world in one of the games. Like you go to an Old West world. I don't feel like that's ever happened.
Yeah. Well, the next Paper Mario, he can go to a cowboy world.
Yeah, there's that one where he's on a train.
Yeah.
All right. That does it for this week's episode. Thank you, as always, to Mario. Thank you particularly to Frankie for joining us today and educating us on Pokemon, because none of us have played the new Pokemon. So I feel like it was especially useful to have somebody who has done a very deep dive into that game to be able to talk about it.
Yeah. Thanks again for having me.
You're absolutely welcome. And obviously you're welcome back anytime to talk more, because it's always cool to get different people on here and they play different games than we do. So that's like always useful, because it's just as useful to hopefully the audience as it is to us, because I feel like I'm not playing that Pokemon game this year. I might get to it eventually at some point, but like probably, by the end of the year, I will not get to it. So it's useful to hear somebody's opinion.
Even just when we get to our game of the year, the very end, like
Sure.
we've engaged with it, even if it's only like the slightest bit, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I mean, you will probably play it sometime before game of the year. And so at least we've had that conversation, even if we don't have time to have it before you play it.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone listening. You can obviously find old episodes and more content by going to salukigames.com. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. That always helps us. You can also find episodes on YouTube, which is always interesting to see the number of people who listen to a particular episode. I cannot figure out how that algorithm works at all, because one week it'll be like 50 people listen to this episode, and the next week it's like one person listened to this episode on YouTube. And I don't know how that works. YouTube is a complete mystery. But until next episode, have a good week. Have a very happy and safe Halloween. Dress up as the most obscure video game character you can. Mario, Frankie, are you dressing up for Halloween in 2 days?
No, I'm going to be in my office working on a exam question.
So you are going as a troll, staying in your cave.
Basically.
I don't have any dress up plans, don't have any plans to go out. The thing I was just thinking of is that I kind of want to watch the Clue movie, because that just seems like a good movie for Halloween. So
yeah, that is a good movie for Halloween. I always like watching Private Eyes with Don Knotts, because that's another murder mystery in a mansion sort of story. So
I will find at least 15 minutes to watch my favorite episode from Over the Garden Wall.
I just watched it over the weekend.
So enjoy Halloween. Watch something at the very least spooky, if not fully scary. Enjoy the holiday. Play something fun, and we'll be back soon.